Welcome everyone to a new video. Today's video is going to be covering how you can get NPCs for your Minecraft server, and this is going to be using a plugin called ZNPC. I did a video about this a few months back, but quite a bit has changed and some of the commands don't actually work anymore, so that is why we're doing an updated one, because a lot of you guys were asking for this. So let's go ahead and get into this plugin showcase. We can go ahead and install our plugin, and we can type ZNPC and we can search it up here, and it is working on 1.8 through 1.17, so perfect for pretty much all your server versions, which is great. And we can go ahead and install it. If you want to see more of your command details, you can go ahead and view details, and it will take you to the Spigot page. But once that's installed, let's go ahead and restart our server and get it loaded up. Today's video sponsor is the Songoda Marketplace, and if you are looking for any type of unique or custom plugin for your Minecraft server, there is quite a bit of selection over there, so make sure you guys go check them out using the link down in the description, and you can find some great plugins for your server. Once you have installed our plugin, let's go ahead and get some commands going here. So the main command is /ZNPC, and I'm going to head and go over a pretty in-depth video covering pretty much most of all the different types of commands that you will need, and I'll show you how you can use it with bungeecord. But I'm just running a Skyblock server, so I'm going to be sort of gearing that towards a real-life example of a server in progress. So what I'm going to be doing is you can actually hover over all these to see various examples. Let's get started with making our own NPC. So I'm going to actually make one right up here, and wherever you are standing, that is where the NPC is going to be made. So we can run the command as ZNPC, and you can just see an example right here. So we need to run the create, and then now we need to enter an ID. So I'm going to call this 1, and this can be any number that you want. And then now we can also enter either a player's name, so you can do like a player, or you can do a mob. So I'm going to type in Fox, and we'll create various NPCs a little bit later. So I'm going to do this as a mob for a fox, and then now we need a name. I'm just going to call this Island Panel. Alright, so there we go. Now our fox has been made, and his name is Island Panel. So we can actually change that a little bit later, but I'm going to make another NPC right across here, and this will basically be a teleporter or information NPC. So here's going to be our second NPC, and make sure you change the ID. And then I want this to be a player, and we'll just call the player's name Jeff. So we can go ahead and name him, and whatever NPC name that you create, it will grab the skin, and you can change the skins a little bit later. So I'm just going to leave that there. And then here we have a little warps sort of marketplace, and I want to make another NPC right here. So I'm going to stand right here, make sure we are changing the ID, and then the player, I'm just going to call this Warps. Alright, so there we go. There is Warps, and that is a very interesting skin. We might change that a little bit later, but those are the 3 examples of how you create your mob or how you can create a player. So those are our 3 examples, and I'm going to come back to the island panel here in a second, but next I want to talk about the toggling feature. So we can do ZNPC toggle, and now we need the ID. For this one, it is 2 for me, and then we can actually do 4 different types of things. We can toggle the hologram, so as you see, the hologram has been toggled. We can also toggle a glow effect, so it can actually have a nice outline glow, and you can actually change the color of the glow if you just basically type the specific color that you want after the glow. So if we want gold, so we can go ahead and toggle, and there we go, there is the gold effect. Say we want green, and we'll have to run that command. There is a green outlines, and I think there's dark purple, I think that's what it's called. Let's go ahead, yeah, there we go, dark purple, kind of like that. So that is the glow effect. And then we also have a mirror. Basically this will mirror the player's skin, and you will need to restart your server in order for this feature to apply, which we will do that in a second. And then the last toggle that we can do is having an NPC look. So it's basically just going to look at the player, and if you just want to toggle it, we can go ahead and toggle it off just like so. So that is the different types of toggle features, and essentially I want to do the same thing for this one over here. And since we are in this blue marketplace, I want him to be a specific basically blue effect. So make sure we can toggle that specific ID, change the ID there, and then let's try blue, and there we go. I actually kind of like that, so we can keep that. and then I'm actually going to change the skin, and you can do that with the ZNPC skin, and then make sure you have the ID. For this one it is 3, and you can actually enter player's name or get a URL of a skin PNG and just paste it in chat, so either one does work, but for my case I'm just going to type in shop, and yeah, so that's going to just do just fine for me. And then the last toggle method, I'm just going to make this NPC look, give it a little bit more characterization, and so I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to head and actually restart my server so we can see the mirror skin effect, and then we'll be back here in a second. So there we have restarted, and now we have the mirror skin, which is pretty cool. So any player that logs in will actually see their own skin, and that is good for like a stats leaderboard or anything that you want to do in that case. So once you have made your NPC, we can go ahead and start doing the fun naming as well as adding commands. And so I'm gonna start with customizing the name a little bit more and adding some color. And I want to drop this down a little bit as well. So what we can do is we can do ZNPC, we can do lines, and then we need the ID for this. In my case, this is my first ID. And now we can actually set our color naming scheme. So just be aware, I will show you an example. So if we do one like first, and then if we do a space, that's actually going to represent the second line of the specific text. And so if we do like a third line here, we actually need a second. So there we go. If we do that, as you see, it does pretty much put each one in its own spacing. If you want it to be all on the same line, by default there's a character which is a dash, and you can actually change this in the config. Typically it's probably best to have it like as an underscore, but by default it is just a dash, and so now you can see everything is on the same line. So that is how you change your colors as well as getting everything on the same line. So because this is a little high, what we can do is do ZNPC. We can actually change the height and make sure we get the ID, which is 1. Now we can input whatever height that we want. And so by default, this is basically 1 block above. I want to go down a little bit, so I can do like -1. So that would actually put it down here, and that actually is about what I want. You can actually put in specific styles, so we could do like 1.5, and that would be even lower. Or say you wanted to go like -0.75 or something. So you can also do that. So it's actually very cool because you can adjust in very specific increments. So just be aware of that, and that's how you change the height of your specific lines. So once you have everything changed, I'm going to head and rename this to just say island panel. Oops, I forgot the dash. Make sure you have the dash in there. So there is the island panel. That looks good, and that is just about ready to add commands to that. But before we add commands, I want to make sure all my NPCs are good, and then we'll just do the commands all at one time. So now we have this name, which is Jeff. So I'm actually going to change this, and I'm going to show you how to add placeholders in this specific NPC. So I'm going to do basically this placeholder, which will represent a player. So I'm going to say welcome, and then we need to do player_name, and that is with placeholder API. So we can go ahead and say welcome player and make sure we have that dash in there. So there we go, it says welcome player. So once you run this command and it doesn't give you the player's name, you need to have this plugin called Placeholder API. So make sure you download that, put it in your plugins folder. So once that is installed, you need to run this command pappy ecloud, and then we need to download, and this is going to be a player expansion. So make sure you go ahead and download that, and once you have that, we can go ahead and do pappy reload, and that should give you the specific placeholder. So that is how you use placeholders in this. So make sure you have that, because if you don't, it will not work. So I'm going to head and actually add on to this specific placeholder. So we'll say welcome player. So I'm going to say next line here, and we'll do players online, and then we'll do another placeholder here. So we'll make a little fancy color codes. We'll add a little parenthesis, and then we're going to be using a placeholder called server_online. So make sure you surround it and the percents for the placeholder, and we'll just end it off like so. So this represents the specific server. If you want to use specifically bungeecord in your hub, you can use this specific placeholder showing on screen now. That is for bungeecord, showing how many players are online on that specific server. So that is how you add placeholders for that. Now we can go ahead and start adding commands to our NPC. So I'm going to head and run the base command here for this action, show you guys an example. Basically, a server, command, and a council represents 3 factors. So if you have a bungeecord server called Skywars, you could send it to that specific server. CMD equals a player command, and then council obviously is a council command. So I'm going to head and run these specific 3 examples through my NPC. So I have a command called isPanel, and everyone on my server has access to this. So we're going to be running this command through my NPC right here. So make sure if you're running player commands, the player already has to have permission to run that command already. So let's go ahead and do ZNPC action, and we can do add, and now we need our specific NPC ID. For my example, it is 1, and we're going to be doing the CMD because players already have access to this, and we can type isPanel. Alright, so now if you go ahead and right click it, it brings up our isPanel. We can pretty much click it anywhere and it will run that command, which is perfect. So this is running as a player command, so make sure everyone, as I said, has permission to run this in order for that to work. And you can actually run multiple commands in here as well. It just depends on what you want to have it set up. So that is how you do player commands. And then now I would act like this is going to be a bungeecord, like in a hub or something. So we can do basically the same command, except to make this 3. So if I run the CMD here, it gives you server, command, message, or council. So those are the syntaxes that you can use. So the server would be for bungeecord, and so all you would do is type in server, and then whatever server is associated in the Bungee config. So say you had a kit PvP server, you would go ahead and right click it, and I would send it to your server named kit PvP on bungeecord. But this is just a single server, so that's why it doesn't work. So we can actually just add a message here, and for example, we could just say sending you to kit PvP, and then if we right click, as you see, there's a message. So those are the syntaxes that we have. The last one we're going to be doing is sending up a warps through a council command. So then my last one over here is going to be running a council command, and that is going to be if a player doesn't actually have that a certain command, but you still want it to be run through them or on them or something along those lines. So in my instance, I'm going to teleport to a world or a specific coordinate, or we could go to a specific warp. So if I do /warps, I have a warp called pond, and the player does not have permission for this, but I still want them to be able to warp there, and we're going to be running it through council because they don't have permission. So we can do ZNPC action add, and then our specific NPC ID, which is 3, and then now we're going to be running our council command. So we can type in council, and we can do warp pond, and then make sure you do player underscore name, and then we can use the player's name as the placeholder, so that would represent the council command. So if we go ahead and right click, as you see, it does teleport us to here, even though we don't have permission as the player to run the warp pond. It does it all through council here. So say you want to run another council command. For example, let's do like the Minecraft TP. Alright, so that would be the Minecraft TP. We can teleport to a specific coordinate. You can basically use the same command syntax, except we're going to be doing the Minecraft TP. So we can run the Minecraft and then :TP, and then the player's name, and then we can enter a specific coordinates that we want. So I'm just going to do 1097, and then we'll do the little squiggly line. I don't know what that's called, but we can actually go ahead and add that, and then we can go ahead and list the actions. So we can do actions, and then we can do list, and then our specific ID, which is 3. So as you see, here is the ID of specific 0, and here is 1. So those are the 2 commands that we're going to be using. And if you wanted to remove one, all you could do is just do remove the specific ID, which is 3, and then you could use our command IDs over here. So they would be 0 or 1, which represents over here if you want to remove one. But let's go ahead and click on it here, and we warp to pond, and then we warped over to this coordinate that we set. So the pond is over there, and then it teleported us to that specific coordinate right there. So that is how you use the council commands. If you want to add some more like armor to to the NPC, you totally can do that. So say, as you see, we have like a chainmail down here. We could actually add some armor to our NPC as well. We'll give myself a chainmail chestplate and make sure whatever equipment that you want to put on your NPC, you have it in your hand, and then we can basically run this command. So make sure you are holding it, and we can do Z NPC, and then we can equip and make sure we get our specific ID, which is going to be 3, and then the slot. So if we hover over here, here is the different types of slots. So you can have the hand, offhand, helmet, chestplate, boots, leggings, all that good stuff. So this is going to be on the chestplate area. So let's go ahead and do that, and boom, there we go. We have equipped him, and let's give myself a diamond sword 1, and then we'll also do that to his offhand. So we'll do offhand, and there we go. So that's how you do equipment. If you just want to remove it, basically run the same command without anything in your hand, and then we'll just remove it, or we can just put it back to the normal hand, and oops, not here, there we go. We actually need to hold it, and there we go. So that is how you equip everything. The last part I'm going to be covering is how you can set up conversation. So dialogue, this is great for any type of RPG server. So the last thing here is going to be conversations setting up with your NPCs. So here is an example. So basically we need to do the NPC conversation, and then we can go ahead and make our new one. So we can do create. I'm just going to call this info. Alright, so basically we need to create one of the categories, so that's going to be called info. So now we can actually open up the GUI interface for the conversation, which is just the NPC conversation GUI or GUI. So here we have the information that we have. So we can go ahead and left click to manage the text that is going to be added to the NPC. So currently there is nothing in here because we haven't added anything. And then right click, which we will add new text. Here we have a radius. So if a player walks in a certain radius of the NPC, it will automatically start to talk. So you can kind of change that if you want it to be on click, or if you just want it to be in a certain radius. And then last we have middle click, basically changing the cooldown of how often we can use our specific conversation. And so if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can typically just click that, and that will count as a middle click. So let's go ahead and add some text for our information, and we can use like placeholders in this as well. So I'm gonna head and type out something, and we'll just give myself some brackets here. We'll say info, and that will represent our specific NPC here. And then remember the dash is for the spaces, so if we want everything to be on one line, we need to do the dash. And so there's going to be a space right here, and we'll just say welcome, and then we'll say player underscore name. We'll say here is a list of commands. So that would be like the first line that we can send. So if we look at it, we can go back to the info. So now we can manage. Here is our specific line, and you can actually edit this if you want to, rechange something, which is really nice. Or you can add sounds, and then you can also make it run specific actions. So whatever your drop, so Q is the drop. So here we can add a new action. This is basically the same thing with what this action does. So you could teleport a player to the server. You can run commands. So I'm gonna do council. ECO give, so this is gonna be the vault money, and then player underscore name, and we'll just give them $1,000 for clicking this specific NPC. So if we go ahead and do that, now we can see, hey, this is going to be running when they click this. So that's going to be our welcome message, and it's going to give the player $1,000. So we can actually go back here to the base one where it says information, and we can right click and add something else. So a backspace, and we'll just say command, and then I'm actually going to do a space because this is going to represent the next line, and we could just do like /help, and then we have like is panel, let me do a slash right there, and then we could do /is help or something. Alright, so that would be our second one. So if we go to our info, here we have a welcome message, and then here we have the commands, and the delay is currently set to 1 second, but if you want to have it spaced out a little bit a little bit more, we can actually middle click and we can change this to 2 seconds. So that's going to be a delay of 2. And if you want to swap them around, you can see you can left click to change the positions of the order that they occur. So I'm going to exit out of the GUI. So now we can actually set the specific NPC to basically start that specific conversation. So we can do ZNPC conversation set and then our NPC, and then you need the specific conversation. So mine was just info, so whatever conversation that you made, whatever name, make sure you put it in here, and then we can have it as a click or a radius. So I'm just going to do click, so whenever I click on the NPC, it will automatically start the conversation. So let's go ahead and try it. Go ahead and click on it, and there we go, we got our message and $1,000. And here is the other info commands. I did forget because I added a space there, so we can actually go back and edit that real quick. So let me go back to my GUI here, and we can go back, and then to edit the text we can shift and right click to edit. And let me bring back this. We need a dash right there and a dash right there, and then that should be good. If we come back here to the information, there is a delay of 10 seconds before we can basically go back and redo the command over and over. So that's a nice delay that it has, but you can change that if you want. So here we go, we ran $1,000, and there we go, it is now formatted to how we want and spaced out. So there we go, that actually is looking really good. And of course we can't like spam click because there is that delay of 10 seconds. So 10 seconds has passed. If I try to spam click again, it's not popping up because of that delay that is in that specific right there. So 10 seconds delay. So that is how you set up your conversations. You can add actions to each specific one if you want, or just list out specific text or messages. But anyways guys, that is this tutorial of a ZNPC plugin. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Join the developers Discord because there's a lot of good information in there as well. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.